Roman Catholicism is a worldwide religious tradition with billions of members. It traces its history to Jesus of Nazareth, an itinerant preacher in the area around Jerusalem during the period of the Roman occupation in the early 30s of the Common Era. Its members congregated in a communion of churches, headed by the bishop, whose role originated with the disciplines of Jesus. Over a period of some decades after Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, the bishops spread across the world to form a universal Greek church, with the Bishop of Rome holding primacy.
Allmächtiger Vater, in der Einheit des Heiligen Geistes alle Herrlichkeit und Ehre, jetzt und in Ewigkeit. Amen.
Catholic Christianity began as a persecuted religious community, illegal in the Roman Empire in its earliest days. But with some 300 years and with the conversation of the Emperor Constantine, it became legal and eventually was recognized as the official religion of the empire.
Is there a founder to Christianity? In short, yes, but this is still a somewhat convoluted point of discussion. Many Christians and historians claim Jesus of Nazareth to be the sole founder of Christianity. These are, for the most part, Orthodox Christians, whose beliefs are more in line with those early 1st century Christians, also known as Jewish Christians. These beliefs have been defined and refined by Jesus' 12 apostles, who were his followers and vowed to spread his teachings around the globe. In the long run, the mission of these 12 apostles was a resounding success, with Christianity being practiced by 2.4 billion people as of 2015. That is a third of the entire planet's population. One of the most prominent apostles within Jesus' inner circle was the later canonized Paul, aka Paul the Apostle or Saul of Tarsus, as is his native name, one of Jesus' closest apostles. Paul's role in the development of Christianity is convoluted at best, but there are more and more theories arising now that suggest many of the teachings and writings we find in the New Testament stray away from the original teachings and writings of Jesus. In the 1st century, we find ourselves in the apostolic period, wherein we find Jesus of Nazareth and his 12 apostles, who promised to follow him in his footsteps. These are the same of 12 apostles that can be found in Da Vinci's Last Supper, with Jesus in the center, surrounded by his disciples, before he is about to tell them that one of them is about to betray him. This gathering depicts the final meal Jesus shared with his followers before being crucified. That being said, there is no passage in any gospel that directly claims that this meal happened the night before he died. 1st century Christianity relied heavily on the writings and teachings of Jesus Christ, who was seen as the Messiah, standing for Son of God. This differs slightly from the Hebrew Bible's interpretation, which says that the Messiah is the Anointed One, with the main difference being that Messiah did not necessarily have to descend from Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, meaning a high priest or prophet could also be given the title of the Messiah. The childhood of Jesus is a very unsure topic, as there isn't a whole lot in terms of documentation on this period, apart from the apocryphic Gospels. These Gospels should be taken with a grain of salt due to the lack of precision and are usually written by an unknown author. These biblical apocryphas, which essentially means that they are doubtful in origin, are seen under a more skeptical light by historians, but largely accepted by many sects within Christianity for the continuity and consistency with the Bible. In the Gospel of Thomas, which is the closest thing to legitimate documentation of Jesus' childhood from his birth till around the age of 12, we receive an insight on what the Christ's life might have been like, and what events might have transpired to inspire him to teach wisdom and knowledge to the masses. According to this gospel, Jesus was capable of producing certain miracles, some considered to be not unlike magic and trickery seen in Greek mythology. At age 1, young Jesus kills a little boy by cursing him and turning him into a corpse. He then curses his neighbors by turning them blind, after he heard them complaining. Jesus also attends classes, to no real effect, as he ends up trying to teach the teachers who are teaching him. Naturally, this angered the teacher, leading them to accuse young Jesus of being endowed with supernatural abilities. This thought intrigued Jesus, and the more he thought about it, he realized all of his wrongdoings from the past. Christ went on to rescind all of his previous ill deeds, like killing that little boy or blinding his neighbors, and essentially cleaned up his act. After this inner transformation in Jesus, he went on to teach at the temple in Jerusalem, where Mary and Joseph had found him speaking with the elders. He served the ministry in the temple and shared good word with his apostles until roughly 30 to 33 AD, when Christ was crucified by the Romans. His body was then placed in a tomb by Joseph of Arimathea, and 3 days later it is said that Jesus rose again, resurrected anew.
The Bible is comprised of 73 books, 46 from the Old Testament and 27 from the New Testament. It is not a magical book, or literally written by God and passed down to mankind. It was written and edited through a human process. The books themselves are based on dialogues between communities through the ages, written by approximately 40 people. With approximately over 5 billion sales, the Bible is widely considered the best-selling book of all time, being a prominent influence in culture, especially in Western culture. The Bible tells us Christianity is linear. Through 73 books, we learn there is a beginning and end to every story. Through this lens of linearity, it teaches us morals to carry throughout life and to our graves. It explains life and God to us, showing us how to relate to each other and how to live a life of conviction. Depending on which branch of Christianity, one can view the Bible differently. There are 3 main branches of Christianity: Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant. Orthodox Christians see the Bible as the book of the church, written for those who believe in God. They believe the Old Testament is partial, incomplete, as it is before Christ, preparing for his arrival. Once Christ has arrived, it will fulfill the Old Testament's message and history. As for the New Testament, it recounts of his actions and in the world and how he acted through the Holy Spirit. Catholic Christians see the Bible as an evolving collection of stories, while also sticking to the divine origins of the Bible. They read the Bible as it is, but also make necessary contributions to the book when needed. Protestant Christians believe the Bible alone is the source of God's special revelation to mankind and teaches us all that is necessary for our salvation from sin. Protestants view the Bible as the standard by which all Christian behavior must be measured. The Bible tells us that Christianity is prone to change with the times, with countless iterations of the Bible across the 3 main branches. The subdivisions of those branches over the years, the original translation of the Bible has surely been lost. With 73 books, contradictions are impossible to avoid. The people involved in its origins varied on different levels: politically, culturally, economically, and ecologically. The quality of life back then had a huge impact on the dialogue shared between writers and what was written in the Bible. Through the Bible, we learn that Christianity is a way of learning what it means to be human, plagued with incurable flaws, contradictions, and holes in our logic. But it also teaches us the heights we can reach or strive to go past, establishing a basic moral compass for us to transform and mold as we all discover our own meaning of what it is to be human.
I'm going to show you some of the rituals and events involved in the practice of Roman Catholicism. One of the ways that Catholics practice their religion is by participating in Sunday services, which are called Mass. At Mass, people take part in a few rituals that look like this. Here people are taking part in a tradition called communion, or Eucharist. People are eating small pieces of bread that are believed to be the body of Jesus. They also drink a sip of wine that is believed to be the blood of Jesus. Before taking part in communion, the priest consecrates the bread and wine. In simple terms, this means that he says specific blessings through which the bread and wine are believed to change into the body and blood of Jesus. Communion is based on the Last Supper, which is shown here in a painting. This was the last meal that Jesus ate with his disciples before his arrest and later crucifixion. At the meal, Jesus told his disciples to eat bread and wine in his memory, just as people do at communion. Communion is an important part of Catholic religion and a way that Catholics connect with God and Jesus. Another way that Catholics practice their religion at Sunday Mass is through prayer. There are a few different ways of saying prayers, including singing, reciting words, and even mentally saying prayers to oneself. Praying can be as simple as thanking God for a good day, or as formal as the Mass that you see here. Some Catholics see prayer as very important to Christian life. It is a way for people to personally communicate and connect with God. There are other ways that Roman Catholics practice their religion outside of church, in their everyday lives. I spoke to someone I know who actively practices Christianity. She told me that one of the ways she practices her religion is through Bible study. Bible study refers to reading the Bible as a religious or spiritual practice. It can be done alone or in a group. Christians read and study as a way to strengthen their connection with God and apply the word of the Bible to their everyday lives. As you have seen, there are different rituals and events that Catholics take part in and out of the church, through which they practice their religion.
Historical developments of the Christian faith. One of the first major developments of Christianity began with the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, who became the unsung face of the religion. Prior to his death and resurrection, Jesus ordained his disciple Peter. Peter became the first bishop of Rome and founder of the Roman Church. Peter began his ministry in secrecy due to the fear of persecution by the Jewish leaders following the death of Jesus Christ. Early Christianity refers to the period when the religion spread in the Greco-Roman world and beyond, from its beginnings as a first-century Jewish group to the end of the imperial persecution of Christians after the ascension of Constantine the Great in 313 CE to the First Council of Nicaea in 325. Early Christianity retained many of the doctrines and practices of Judaism, such as the story of David. Continuing from where the Jewish faith left off, various individuals gave their account of the many miracles and deeds that Jesus had performed throughout his life. The New Testament became the foundation of teachings for the Christian faith. Early Christians shared the Jewish Bible, which became known as the Old Testament. Testament was a word that meant a covenant or promise between God and man. Following Jesus' death, texts began to be written and gathered, which would become the New Testament, revealing the teachings and updated covenant of Jesus Christ. The earliest version of the New Testament is the Gospel according to Mark, which was written between 75 to 85 AD. Mark's Gospel became the basis for the Gospels of Matthew, Luke, and John, which would later focus on greater spiritual issues, compared to a biography of Jesus Christ. Transitioning to the Middle Ages, the year 800 to the end of the 15th century, the Christian Church went through a period of substantial change due to the fall of Constantinople, the end of the Hundred Years' War, the discovery of the New World, and the Protestant Reformation, which saw the Christian faith torn in opposite directions. Throughout the history of the Christian faith, the Church not always acted in good faith. A dark period of the Christian faith is the period of the Crusades. The Crusades, which were sponsored by the Pope, observed the push of Christian faith amongst others of different religious groups, often using violent means. 2,000 years of Christian faith results in lots and lots of changes, as time and society changes. The Enlightenment period observed the disagreement between the Church and science, famously known as the Trial of Galileo. Galileo remained firm on his support for evolving science and astronomy. Transitioning into the modern age, the leaders of the Catholic Church met at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican from 1962 to 1965 to discuss modernizing the Catholic Church. Going forward, the Catholic Church battles with controversy and scandals, such as the rejection of homosexuality, protected sex, and the rejection of females into the ministry.
Opportunities. The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time use for us.
2,000 years is a long period of time, which saw the faith transform tremendously, and along with the changing world.